Keir Starmer is preparing for the fight of his political life. This week, the Prime Minister will step onto the stage with a pledge to launch a progressive fightback, promising to push back against the far right and the politics of hate. But behind the bold words lies a deeper question. Is this a genuine turning point for Britain, or just a desperate attempt to steady a shaken government? Starmer's message will be clear. Britain is at a crossroads. In his speech, he's expected to warn that the nation must choose between renewal and decline, unity or division. Framed as a battle for the very soul of the country, he will cast his government as the antidote to Farage's rhetoric and the rising tide of extremism. But this isn't just another conference speech. For Starmer, it's a test of strength, a chance to prove that he can set the agenda, not simply react to it. And with party critics circling, failure is not an option. Inside Starmer's own party, the pressure is boiling. Senior Labour MPs, some of them once among his staunchest allies, are openly worried that he hasn't gone far enough in taking on Nigel Farage. They argue that Labour's response has been dry, focused on policy numbers and legal details, while missing the bigger picture, a moral rejection of hate-fueled politics. And the timing couldn't be worse. In recent weeks, Starmer has been hit by turmoil, losing his deputy leader Angela Rayner, the U.S. ambassador Peter Mandelson, and even a senior aide in a swirl of scandals. Allies whisper that authority is slipping. Critics fear the cracks are spreading. The unity he promised is showing its strain, and everyone in Westminster knows it. While Labour fights its internal battles, Reform UK is going on the offensive. Nigel Farage has spent the summer rolling out policies designed to shock and dominate the headlines. Plans for mass deportations, scrapping the Human Rights Act, and pulling Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights. And now, his latest proposal goes even further, ending indefinite leave to remain and replacing it with a rolling visa system, complete with high salary thresholds and tight family restrictions. Labour MPs have branded it morally abhorrent and Trumpian. But here's the danger. Farage's message is simple, blunt, and cuts through with voters. Reform paints itself as the party of action, while Labour risks looking hesitant and defensive. And that's exactly the ground Starmer cannot afford to lose. Starmer knows he can't fight Farage on Farage's terms. Instead, he's preparing a counterpunch built around a broader vision. Behind closed doors, he's been reaching out to fellow center-left leaders across Europe and beyond, aiming to form a united front against the rise of right-wing populism. From Ukraine to Gaza, he wants Britain to stand with progressive allies, framing the struggle as global, not just national. In a recent Sun op-ed, he described it as nothing less than a struggle for the heart and soul of our nation, warning that extremists are exploiting economic frustrations to fuel division and hate. It's a call to arms, a bid to seize the moral high ground. But critics inside Labour whisper that this moment feels less like leadership and more like a late scramble to catch up. On Britain's streets, the far right has already been flexing its muscles. Just weeks ago, the so-called Unite the Kingdom March drew thousands, fronted by Tommy Robinson and, astonishingly, addressed by Elon Musk. The scenes were explosive, with chants, flags, and a message that Britain should turn its back on diversity. Yet Downing Street's response was hesitant, almost muted. Only after mounting criticism did Starmer issue a fiery statement, vowing that Britain would never surrender its flag to far-right agitators. For some, it was the defiant stance they had been waiting for, but for others, it was too little, too late. Proof that Starmer is reacting to events, not shaping them. And that perception could prove fatal in the battles ahead. Starmer's biggest challenge is walking a razor-thin line. He knows voters are deeply concerned about migration and the economy. Ignoring those fears would be political suicide, but leaning too far into them risks sounding like he's chasing Farage's playbook. Insiders admit this is the government's fatal flaw risk. If Social Democrats don't provide convincing answers, people will look elsewhere. In cabinet, Starmer has warned his ministers to be crystal clear about what they're up against. Figures who thrive on grievance, who don't want solutions because their politics depends on perpetual anger. The question is whether he can offer reassurance without compromise, strength without sliding into mimicry. For a prime minister who promised moral clarity, the balancing act has never been more precarious. Labour insists the government is already delivering on its progressive promises. Green energy investment, stronger workers' rights, hikes in the minimum wage, and tax protection for most working families. These are the policies Starmer believes should define his premiership. But here's the problem. they're struggling to cut through. Reform UK's slogans are simple and emotional, while Labour's achievements sound complex and technocratic. Voters aren't just asking what Starmer has done, they're asking whether he truly represents change or just another politician talking in riddles. That's the bigger question hanging over his fightback. Can he capture the public imagination before the far right defines the future of Britain's politics? Or will history remember this as the moment Labour's moral voice was drowned out by populist noise? Keir Starmer calls this a battle for Britain's soul, a clash between renewal and decline, unity and division. But as Nigel Farage dominates the headlines, as Reform UK sharpens its message, and as Labour's own MPs whisper doubts in the corridors of Westminster, one question lingers. Is Starmer really leading a progressive fightback or staging a last stand? The answer may decide not only his future, but the direction of Britain itself. Let us know what you think in the comments.